This, I think, is a clarifying moment. Senator Pat Roberts is a Republican. He's the senior U.S. senator from the great state of Kansas. At a Senate hearing yesterday, here's Senator Roberts expressing his concerns about how the operation of meat processing plants is being affected by all these COVID-19 outbreaks that are happening at all of those plants for some reason. Here's what he thinks the problem is.
The problem is our workers. And just this morning, they showed up at the plant, not in numbers that we had hoped for, but we at least keep the meatpacking plant open. And what's happening is that they're not catching the virus at the meatpacking plant. It's afterwards.
It's afterwards. The problem is the workers. They're not getting infected at the plant. Nothing's happening at the plant. It's these people after they go home. It's just a coincidence that all the meatpacking plants all over the country are having huge outbreaks among their workers. The problem is nothing that's happening at the plants. It's just coincidentally that they all have these terrible worker people who are getting infected elsewhere, victimizing the plants. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar echoed this argument this week on a call with members of Congress. He told them that outbreaks at meatpacking plants in this country are due to the, quote, home and social aspects of workers' lives. Not getting infected at work. They just all coincidentally happen to be getting infected at home and then coming to work at the same place. It's so weird. Then there was Wisconsin this week. A lawyer for the Democratic governor of the state was making an argument to the state Supreme Court this week about why Governor Tony Evers' stay-at-home orders in Wisconsin were so important, why they shouldn't be overturned. The court's conservative chief justice interrupted the lawyer with a remark that, for a lot of folks, I think really seems to clarify and sum up what has been going on here.
The cases in Brown County in the span of 2 weeks surged over tenfold, from 60 to almost 800. And that's 2 weeks that would be required for emergency rulemaking. So,
these were due to the meatpacking, though. That's where the Brown County got the flare. It wasn't just the regular folks in Brown County.
The giant outbreak in Brown County wasn't the regular folks there. It was just the meatpacking people, not the regular people. So you can't really call that a point of concern. It's not the regular. We're starting to get a better sense of why these huge outbreaks in the middle of our country seem not to be causing any concern whatsoever among lots of political leaders. At least no concern beyond what effect the outbreaks might conceivably have on the plants themselves, as opposed to the thousands of people who work in them who are all getting infected there. I mean, those workers are thought of as apparently being not regular, too different, not part of the real community, maybe, therefore they're not really real people. But, it's one thing to not particularly care what happens to this group of other people. It's another to decide that what happens to them really has nothing to do with, no effect on all of the rest of us. And because of that, I want to show you something that was sent to us today by a data visualization company that's called Tectonics. This is a map showing the Tyson meatpacking plant in Cass County, Indiana, in March of this year. So this was a plant, you've probably heard something about it, shut down last month. This is the plant where 900 workers there tested positive for COVID-19, about 40% of the workers at that plant. This is a plant in Cass County, Indiana that just reopened yesterday. Now, all those tiny bluish-white dots in there, those are people's mobile devices giving off a signal at that facility. Tectonics used anonymized location data from cell phones to create an animation of what happened to those mobile devices and the people attached to them over the course of the month of March. Those devices traveled out into the surrounding counties and into surrounding states, and then ultimately also across almost the entire country. By the end of March, people who had been inside that Cass County Tyson plant, which would eventually be diagnosed with 900 coronavirus infections just among people who work there, people had traveled to nearly every state in the nation. And it makes sense, actually. Meat processing plants are in the middle of a sprawling national supply chain. The Trump administration and leaders in these states with all these meatpacking plant outbreaks, they may want to blame these outbreaks on the workers in these plants and describe these outbreaks as no big deal because it's just those people. But however much you're going to have to pay for that at the end of your life when you have to answer for the way you have lived, Right now, that sort of prejudice and short-sightedness is not going to make these outbreaks go away. And it's not going to magically contain these outbreaks to those workers. There is going to need to be a better plan for this. And the clock is ticking.